Welcome to another episode of the Lightspeed Investing Podcast. I'm super excited to have Dwyer, my friend from Australia, visiting in today. He is the founder of the Institute of Wow, and he has a lot of wisdom to share, specifically about direct response marketing and how it's different from your typical branding and other marketing endeavors. John, glad to have you, my friend. How are you doing?
Thank you very much, Philip. Doing really well, mate. I'm up for some hard questions.
Absolutely. Well, this first couple of ones should not be that difficult because it's all about you. I'm curious, before getting into what you call avalanche marketing, what was your background? Were you always an entrepreneur? How did you get your first start in business?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, at way back at school days, which is the 1800s for me, I was always the guy that was putting on the school fairs and organising fundraising for the school. It was a Catholic de la Salle school, so they're always fundraising.
Sure.
And when I left, I went to uni and did the advertising and marketing degrees at college, none of which mean anything because you don't learn that much at college. So therefore, I've got the bits of paper on the wall, but yeah, they didn't mean much.
That's right.
And I was lucky enough to get a job with a major supermarket chain here in Australia called Woolworths. And I know there's been a Woolworth in America, but this is quite different. This is a massive, supermarket chain. And when I was with Woolworths as a junior, I could see that they were stimulating sales through what we call artificial wow factors. I call it artificial wow factors. So they would say,
Mm,
look, come in and spend money at Woolworths, and for every $10, in those days, you used to get a stamp, like a postage stamp. And then you would put it onto a saver sheet. And when you saved up so many stamps, you got cookware and glassware for crazy prices. And I could see what this artificial marketing stuff was doing to sales. And I thought, gee, this is interesting. And then I saw that they were doing scratch games. And so therefore, if you went and you spent $50 at Woolworths, you got on your supermarket gear, you'd get a scratch ticket. And when you scratched it out, you'd get a $500 note in red, and you'd have to go back to Woolworths shopping there rather than going to other supermarkets because you had to get $50 in red, blue, green, and yellow to win $50. And I could see that this, what they call continuity marketing, was very successful. So I left Woolworths and set my own thing up, and that's where I am today. I'm doing much the same thing today, but these days, of course, it's all on Facebook and LinkedIn rather than stamps.
So how has that been different for you, transitioning from the old school kind of physical business to the Facebook, the online? Is it mainly the execution that's changed, and the foundation of the strategy and the philosophy has remained intact? You want to comment on that?
Yes, spot on, Philip. Exactly. I get asked that question quite a bit, given I'm in the baby boomer vintage these days, and they say, "Look, what's changed?" And I said, "Nothing. A good idea is still a good idea. It's just that with the help of AI these days, you can bring it to market much quicker, like much, much, much quicker. And of course, the communication platform's different. Whereas before it may have been a brochure in the letterbox, or it may have been TV or radio. These days, it's more likely going to be major, social media platforms like Facebook.
Okay. And so, what's the best way for you to implement? Is it for you to have a team? Are you doing this on your own?
Yeah, I mean, I've had a business that was doing, 14, 15 million a few years back, and we would have had 25 staff. And I subsequently sold that business. And these days there's half a dozen in my team. So we're a relatively modest sized small business. And the reason I keep it lean and mean these days is because you can outsource most of the things, but you can't outsource the ideation. You can't outsource the ideas. And so, it's very difficult to find people who are right-brained, who've got good ideas that are practical. There's plenty of people with ideas, but as you know, being an entrepreneur yourself, there's plenty of people out there with ideas, but, whether they're practical and whether they're money-making ideas is another thing. So I outsource a lot of the stuff, but by the same token, I'm normally the ideas guy that's going to come up with the solution to someone's issues. And most of the time, it's going to be a business saying, "I need quick sales." I don't get too many clients come on board who say, "Look, I've got a business, and I'd like you to slowly grow the revenue for me over the next 5 years." That doesn't happen too often.
So, going back to the statement that I made at the beginning, right? You're here to talk about direct response marketing and how that differs from your other branding endeavors. You want to comment on that in terms of what exactly is the essence of direct response marketing?
Yep, sure. Look, we flipped the model. The normal model for an advertising agency and most of them call themselves digital marketing agencies these days, is that they will tell you, look, we'll help you, build your whole brand so that people will fall in love with it. Okay, we say, look, no, what we'll do is we'll get them to taste your product so that they will fall in love with your brand. So we flip the model, where a model normally is a long-term one where they sponsor basketball teams, or they sponsor, footy teams or baseball or whatever it might be, or they might put their face on the side of a bus or the back of a taxi. That's the long-term way of making money. There's nothing wrong with that, and Toyota can do it, and McDonald's can do it, and Kellogg's can do it. All those big businesses can do that without any measurability. I mean, there's absolutely no measurability to sponsoring a baseball team, none. Okay, so the people who are throwing money at baseball are normally the big companies, whereby the marketing manager will never be put in front of the boss and said, okay, give me the ROI on the amount of money that we're sponsoring with the Lakers. He's never going to be asked that question, because they can throw it up against the wall. But for small to medium-sized businesses, then they want an ROI real quickly. And that's what direct response marketing does. Now, the ugly version of direct response marketing is your infomercials, selling the George Foreman barbecues. That's your ugly version of a TV in the morning. The smarter version is using, either TV or radio, but mainly social media, and coming up with ideas whereby you give Zuckerberg money today, but you've got money in the bank tomorrow. In other words, they're ideas that get a quick return.
And when you say quick, what's the timeline? One week, 1 month?
We had a client last week. He's a water filtration business, and he sells $4,000 to $5,000 water filtration systems for the whole house. So it's not the under the sink version where it's just in the kitchen. This is the water filtration system for the whole house. He was paying a lead generation company. He's basically paying Zuckerberg $128 a lead, $128 a lead. Within 24 hours, we got that to 92 cents a lead. So that's he thinks I'm JC. My name is John Dwyer, and I get JD for those initials, but he calls me JC now, because within 24 hours, we've taken his lead from $120-something to $1.
And without giving too much of your secrets away, how do you think you're able to reduce those numbers to that kind of drastic magnitude?
Yeah, I don't mind giving it away. Yeah, Philip, I don't mind giving it away. It's really simple. We just are running a Facebook contest for him, and the prize is a water filtration system for your home. And so what happens is that contest will run over 3 months. So therefore, he's only going to come up with one home water filtration system over 3 months. What happens is that ad launched, 7 days ago. He's up to just 1,000 leads now in a week, 1,000 leads in a week, and he's paying 92 cents a lead. So when you're scrolling through Facebook, you come across, if you're a consumer in his particular geo-demographic area, which is a number of zip codes, then you will see, how would you like to win a water filtration system for your business? So you're going to click that, and you go through to a landing page where we collect everything but your blood group, and you've entered the contest. Now, what happens is that throughout that 12 weeks, every Friday, we have a weekly draw. And you can only enter the contest once. So therefore, in week one, let's just say there was 300 people that entered, and one person would be drawn to be in the grand draw at the end of the 12 weeks. So it's like American Idol. Someone wins this week, they go through to the grand final. And so therefore, all of the other 299 people who entered in week one are absolute fodder for following up on the Monday of week two. And so that's what's happening. His people ring up the people who entered in week one to say, look, you can't enter again. You didn't win the weekly draw, which means you can't be in the grand draw. You are obviously interested in a water filtration system. You don't enter a contest to win lawn mowing if you're living in an apartment. So that's what happens. And his close rate so far, he's only been 1 day that he's been phoning these people up. His close rate so far is running at 16%, which is pretty good for a $5,000 product.
And for you, in terms of the history of companies that you worked with, are they mainly physical product companies, or do you also serve service companies as well that maybe more so sell like intellectual property or coaching?
Yeah, no, right across the board. I mean, people say, oh, well, that example I've given you there is B2C, business to consumer. Do you do B2B? I said, well, that's what we are. We're a marketing agency, so therefore we're selling our services only to businesses. I don't sell my services to consumers. So, yeah, we do B2B and B2C, and we've done everything from A to Z. I haven't done a zoo, I must say. So when I say A to Z, I haven't done a zoo, but I've done everything in between.
That's funny. Now, in terms of the application of this, right, like and ethics, just out of curiosity, do you actually give someone And do you actually have a winner out of these contests, or
Oh
is
yeah,
it
oh,
just
yeah,
for marketing?
yeah, no, yeah, no, you got to give the prize. Got to give the prize away. Yeah, so at the end of the 12 weeks, there'll be 12 weekly winners in the major draw, just like it would be with American Idol, where there's X number of people in the grand final.
Okay, okay,
One of those
that's
people,
fair.
one of those people get drawn and they win the home filtration system. But in the meantime, over 12 weeks, he will have
Yeah.
probably 12,000 leads, 12,000 leads in 12 weeks.
Now, why 12 weeks? Has that been like do you run it for 12 weeks all the time for your different campaigns? I'm just kind of curious,
No,
like,
no, different
why do you think
horses.
that time frame works?
Yeah, horses for courses. Some businesses say, look, I just want to have a big spring, and so therefore I'm going to run it for just 1 month. Some will run it for 3, some will run it for 6, some will run it for 12 months. It's entirely up to them and their budget. The reason that
Oh, I see.
he chose 3 months is simply because he's coming into a season whereby he knows it's a peak season for people being interested in
Gotcha.
water filtration. Yep.
I see. And so obviously, that's a pretty interesting approach. Would you say that the contest model, right, is the number one model that works best, or are there other models that you maybe just tweak that's similar to this one that also works quite well?
Yeah. Oh, look, lots and lots of models. I think I may have mentioned to you earlier before you press the record button. I had a campaign that I did for an Australian bank down under a dozen years ago, and I got Jerry Seinfeld to be the spokesperson, which was a bit of a feat. And have I milked the daylights out of that for the last 12 years? Yes, I have. I don't think he brings me up in his conversations around the dinner table, but I bring him up all the time. And so what happened, I convinced Jerry Seinfeld to be the spokesman for this bank. And this bank was in what I call a Me Too industry. So therefore, basically,
Okay.
you get a home loan. You get a home loan from any bank. That money looks the same. It doesn't matter. It's not like if you get, Cadbury chocolate is going to be better than a no-name chocolate. In this instance, then you get $1 million from a bank. It's the same $1 million you get from any bank. So there's no difference in the actual product. And so I said to this bank, did they realise that they were a challenger brand? And they didn't. If you're a challenger brand, which means you're not the Bank of America or Wells Fargo, then you better do things differently because you're going to be invisible. So what we did is that I was working with a travel company at the time doing infomercials for them on television. I introduced the travel company to the building society. It was a bank, building society bank, same thing. And we came out with a concept which said get a home loan and get a free vacation. And it went absolutely nuts. They brought in an extra $15 billion, not million, $15 billion worth of home loans in the first 2 or 3 years. And about 2 or 3 years into it, we took it to another level because I got Jerry Seinfeld to do the advertising. So I'd fly backwards and forwards from Australia to New York, and Jerry did all the ads with us. And Jerry Seinfeld came on TV and social media and said, swap your home loan from the Bank of America to this bank and you get a free vacation. The thing went nuts. And as a result of that being very successful, I got contacted by a travel company just before COVID. And the travel company said, look, you obviously have half a brain when it comes to marketing. We've got access to unsold hotel rooms around the world, around America, Orlando, New York, Chicago, Grand Canyon, San Diego, all those places. And these hotels are happy to give up their rooms free of charge because they're hoping whoever stays there will spend money on food and beverage. So it's a win-win. I said, great, okay. And they said, would you want to be involved with us? And then, we'll split the revenue. So that's another idea that we have for businesses where they have a Happy Meal toy, which is a free vacation.
That's awesome. And so obviously working with Seinfeld has allowed you to help that bank bring in $15 billion in revenue. How have you leveraged that to get additional opportunities? And what are you currently working on now? Like what's your next passion projects?
Yeah, look, I've done the McDonald's and the KFCs and the 7-Elevens and the Dunkin' Donuts and all of that. We've done all those bigger companies. And what I find is that whilst that's great, and that they pay the money and it's good for my ego, where the easier money for me was not so much in the boardrooms, but rather with the small to medium-sized businesses. That was a sweet spot that I hadn't tapped into. So yeah, for the last 10 years, we've tended to concentrate on that. And the reason I say that is because you would know this being an entrepreneur, you can hold a webinar and have 100, 200, 300 people on that webinar and you sell once to many. And if you actually create these concepts that they look after themselves, so therefore they don't need my consultancy. In other words, they don't need my brain after they buy the package, which comes with the vacation promotion, for example. They just buy that from me for whatever it is, $50 a vacation voucher or whatever. And then they actually have a system that they run it themselves. Whereas what I found with the consultancy, they paid big money. I mean, the bank here down under, this was 12 years ago, they were paying me 35K a month. So, I mean, that's real money. And my wife was very happy that we had clients like that because we had 6 children that we were putting through private schools. But the model that I'm into now is actually providing small to medium-sized businesses with packaged promotions. So therefore, they get what's between my ears. It's just that they don't get me. And so therefore, that's what we concentrate on now. So that vacation promotion that I just mentioned, we will give 50 or 100 vacation vouchers to businesses for $50 a time, which is unbelievable value because the vacation is worth $1,000. And that's something I should highlight, Philip, is that if anyone's going to do what we call incentive-based marketing, and that's what that is, you give someone an incentive to buy your products versus your competition. 2 things. Number one, it takes their eyes off the price so you can charge more. The Greater Building Society that I mentioned that had the Seinfeld campaign, they were the highest interest rate for home loans in the world for 10 years in a row, okay? Nobody ever noticed it. The reason was because we took their eyes off the price with the Happy Meal toy. And so I always say to people, follow what McDonald's have been doing and the Kellogg's cornflakes for a lot of years. They give you a toy to take their eyes off the price. And that's what incentive-based marketing is. And when you run incentive-based marketing, make sure that you make a big deal out of the incentive. Buy my product or buy my service, and I will give you a free Happy Meal toy.
I love it. I love it. And for those listening, if they're curious, what's the best way to get a hold of you, to have a conversation with you and learn more about either direct response marketing done right or incentive-based marketing done right? What's the best way for them to get a hold of you?
Well, thank you, Philip. Yeah, look, probably just an email, john@theinstituteofwow.com. So that's my personal email address. It's not info or admin, so it's never going to get to me. It'll come to me. So that's John, John, @theinstituteofwow.com. And probably the other way is, just through my website, which is theinstituteofwow.com. I might say that if anyone's interested in the Facebook lead promotion, I mean, swipe the idea. You don't need to use me. You can have my blessing and swipe the idea. But the whole idea of that is that you give away your product or service as a prize. And so therefore, whoever enters that obviously is interested in your product or service. Okay. You don't enter a contest to win air conditioning if you've already got air conditioning. Okay. So they're not leads. They're red hot leads because they've glowed in the dark and said, I want your product or I want your service. If you want to have a look at that, and feel free to swipe it if you want to do it yourself. I mean, I don't do my own sort of car servicing, so I'm sure when you look at it, you'll probably think, no, it's better to pay him. Just go to leadscontest.com. So if you go to leadscontest.com, you'll see how that works. And you know what? It works for any business. The only business I've knocked back so far is a funeral parlor. I didn't think it was good to give away a funeral for a prize.
And Leads Contest is, no, of course not. And leadscontest.com is also your website. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So therefore we have about, 50, 60, 70 websites. And so therefore the one that has the leads formula, which is the one that I talked about, where you get a bucket load of leads, then just leads plural, LEADS, contest.com, leadscontest.com.
Well, John, thanks so much. I know it's late down under in Australia, but thank you so much for taking your time, coming on and sharing some of your years of wisdom and insights in direct response and avalanche marketing. Thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to speaking to you again.
Take care. My pleasure. Thanks, Robert. Bye-bye.
Absolutely. Bye-bye.